thank you again for that. And one of the things that I found in this journey, because you're always asking yourself questions and you're always trying to measure impact, you're always trying to find better ways to measure impact. And I think in the beginning, what was really great about when with some of the roles I've had with work is you can see the impact very quickly. So if it's about investing in Nollywood, it has a number, it has an output. So these are very concrete things that you see. But then there are also sort of these holes in time that you're really trying to make sure that you're using that time very well when it comes to investing in other people. And I think that's the real opportunity on the continent is there's an opportunity to invest in a way that changes people's lives, that really changes society, that changes community. And sometimes it could be your time that you're investing, it could be money you're investing, it could be relationships that you're investing, but you can see just a monumental shift that can happen on the continent. And I think for me, when I'm asking myself, why am I here? Because once again, there is still the daily drudgery of being here sometimes. There is traffic, there is generators, there's all this stuff. And people do ask you, you can be anywhere. Why do you pick this place? And then you see the impact, you see the opportunities, and you just see the brightness in the future that exists here. And I think in those times, that's what keeps me going. That's what encourages me, that's what inspires me. People just building things here is inspiring, and so being part of that story is what keeps me here every day. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for sharing that. Kay is over a series of podcasts. A lot of people here might not know that, but I want you to share what your journey has been, being born in Agege and ending up in the UK as a Nigerian British entrepreneur that's changing the future for other Nigerians living abroad.
Yeah, thanks for that. First of all, I'm a proper Agege boy. I'm very proud of my roots. I was born in Nigeria, lived in Lagos, Agege more specifically, and I had the opportunity to move to the UK to join my mom and my brother around 2004. And so I've been living in the UK for the last 18 years now. I went to school, college, and uni. I dropped out in uni, very proudly. I'm very proud to say that. But one thing that's always been at my core is computer, more specifically. I had a very privileged experience. When I was very, very young, I think around the age of 8 years old, my mom, she's scrambled all this money together to send me to a computer school for 3 months. And that changed my life. That changed my perception of possibility, of what's possible. And if you ask me when I was just under 10 years old, where I wanted to be growing up, at the time, based on my perception of what's possible in my environment, it was always, I wanted to be a computer engineer. Because at that time, that's what I knew. But I was absolutely in love with computing. And so fast forward to moving to the UK in 2004, I moved around the age of 15. I was too old to get into the secondary school, but also too young to get into college. So I had to kind of wait for a bit before going to college. And then within that period, my mom asked me, what do you want to study in college? And without a doubt, computing. So I got the opportunity to go into college, studied intro to computing. And for me, computing is it's my technical divine gift, right? That's one thing I'm extremely good at. But I need to fast forward, because I don't want to waste too much time here. So fast forward, I think I'm quite privileged to know my passion and what drives me and what I'm really good at from a very young age, and that's just computing. And so my experience going through college was just spending literally like every waking period to learn about how to be really good at computing. And I was quite lucky. We got introduced to like software development. So prior to that, like I'd always thought like the hardware, like upgrading computers and installing like graphic card and all of that stuff. That's what I knew in Nigeria. When I got to the UK, I realized you could actually code software. You could program things, and that was like I was born again when I discovered that. Right, I discovered that you could actually think of something and build it. And this was a phase of like MSN, Messenger, and there's a lot of young people getting into that. And I was just fascinated by the possibility of like thinking of something and just building it, and you don't need like anyone to tell you what to do. So basically, like I devoted all of my time into like learning how to code. I failed every other module, but I became the best student at college when it comes to like programming, and I did like a lot of fun stuff. And then fast forward to like, obviously my mom's Nigerian, so send money quite often to families back home, just like millions of people in diaspora have to do. And I observe you should do this quite often. Like typically she'd use like Western Union, or she'd walk to like some shop to send for like these unlicensed agents. Sometimes she'd tell me to go, and I was like grudgingly, help her to do it. But in my mind, someone who's like kind of like technically adept, I'd always thinking like how can we make this much better or more simplified? Even though at the time I wasn't working and I wasn't really sending money, right? But I could see my mom, I could observe that in my mom. And fast forward to 2016, I think I'd been kind of traveling back to Nigeria from 2010 to work on like different initiatives with different organizations, mainly in Abuja. And I was also running a different company at the time called AfricaNXT. So AfricaNXT was this idea of like Africans and ethnic minorities in the UK should like at the tap of a button have access to like their core spices and ingredients and the things that really drive us, right? From a food perspective. And it was really hard to get that, especially in 2016. So I kind of thought of this company called AfricaNXT, which is basically a grocery marketplace that delivers like wherever you want to your grocery items to your doorstep. And it was such an like kind of like edgy idea at the time, 2016, like a few years ago. But unfortunately, like it was, we got loads of traction. It was sort of founded by myself, and I had like a few other helps. Going to like the final stage of Just Eat Accelerator program, people really took interest in it. Unfortunately, it was seen as like at the time it was seen as a niche business, right? You can imagine like, and I didn't think so, but from a venture backable type project, it was seen as quite niche. So I had to pack the idea, and one of my mentors told me, Kay, like, what you're doing is really incredible, but unfortunately it's very capital intensive, which is true. Like at the time, like Amazon wasn't making profit on their the logistics aspect, and even I was losing like, excuse my French, shitloads of money trying to build this thing. And my mentor said, Kay, how about like you focus on the same customer base, the same demographic, but think about a pure tech solution that doesn't require that doesn't take time to deliver, right? And at the time I was like, being very geeky, trying to build this chatbot thing. But anyway, then Zazu came about, which is the idea of like, how do we help migrants who work extremely hard on the continent and they send money back home, not just to invest in the continent, but to help their loved ones? How do we make sure like they get the best deal every single time at the tap of a button? And that's what Zazu is all about. And I think like to kind of wrap it up, so my passion is, I don't know why, but everything I do is always have to have like the community, more specifically African in it, even though sometimes it's not always like the most commercially viable thing to do. But I'm just driven by that, and that's part of like what Zazu is all about, helping Africans globally to help them move money very smoothly.
And your podcast?
Thanks a lot.
The
Thanks.
podcast, yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah, maybe you should, tell us what the podcast is, and
Sure.
we'll get
We
time
can
for
dive
that.
into that.
I think prior to today, this probably wasn't something I was going to raise or bring out here, but you know, the whole of yesterday and then this morning, as we all navigate and read and watch what is happening in Ukraine, part of that narrative for us as Africans, right, and as Black people, is also to see how difficult it is in a crisis and in a war, how much harder it is for the Africans who are being educated there, right, to navigate the same. Now, while we look at it and you might ask, you know, could our governments have done something about it? Should they have been there studying? We have lots of questions to ask ourselves, right? But as we look at our relationship with the continent itself, the question that comes to mind was more sparked by a Ghanaian who was introduced, you know, and interviewed during, you know, all of that's going on. And he plainly said he will much rather die in Ukraine than move back to Ghana. And it made me ask myself, why is that, right? And so I don't have a perfect answer, but as I look at our relationship as Africans in the diaspora who talk about, you know, what our role is and what part we play, the question that I'd ask is, where have you found yourself, but also most importantly, why do you think this dynamic is, right? Have you struggled in the past with the idea of, should I return home? Because I'm pretty sure it's not been just glamorous.